Fall Apart, a milestone in African literature, widely studied across Africa and Europe, North America, and translated into over 50 languages. It chronicles the destruction of Igbo culture in Nigeria due to British colonialism, focusing on Okonkwo, a respected Igbo warrior and farmer, whose story symbolizes broad cultural disintegration. The novel, written in English, combines history, fiction, anthropology, political science, and sociology, offering a balanced analysis of both the strengths and flaws of Igbo culture and the mixed impacts of colonial intrusion. The theme, Unoka, Things Fall Apart, and Reimagining Ala Igbo through cultural memory. Have we forgotten, or can we still remember? What are those things that help Igbo remember? Onya, ta, nechi, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. This is the Eastern Eye. I'm Alex Obodo. Welcome to the Eastern Eye here on Umuofia TV, a program that x-rays the political, social, and economic developments around us. Joining me tonight is Ujuaku Akukwe Nwakalor, founder, Eastern Nigeria Film and Arts Initiative, ENFAI. Thank you so much for joining me tonight on the Eastern Eye. I think almost a year ago, your last outing here.
I think 2 years ago.
Well, okay, maybe a little over a year ago.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Ujuaku Nwakalor.
Ujuaku Nwakalor. Okay, so when we look at Things Fall Apart, how does the title Things Fall Apart relate to the concept of Ala Igbo? Because it looks like the novel has become, for a lot of people, the only reference, apart from those who studied history though. But it looks like Things Fall Apart is just the reference. Anybody who's woke will easily say, even if Things Fall Apart, no mention was made of cassava.
Okay, how does it relate to Ala Igbo?
Yeah.
So Things Fall Apart, aside from it being authored by a legend, Achebean, I think a lot of people relate to the concept, the novel, and everything about the book because of the man himself, because of it touched on some aspect of Igbo culture, not all. It touched on the concept of Igbo cosmology, touched on spirituality, touched on colonialism and all of that. And when you relate it to what is happening now, it's like the man Achebean himself saw into the future. And I'm sure that when he wrote the book, things has not really fallen this apart. But right now, things are definitely falling apart. So I think when you talk about it and talk about Ala Igbo, how it relates to Ala Igbo, you look around you, things are happening now, and you begin to ask yourself, what is going on? Mm-hmm. So aside from the bigger notion that's the entire country, Nigeria, Africa, I mean the entire world, then it narrow it down to Ala Igbo and the, let me say, abnormalities that's happening every day. You can truly say that things have fallen apart.
And the center cannot hold. Just before I continue with the questions I have for you, have we actually imagined if Chinua Achebe did not write Things Fall Apart? I'm not sure anybody has played that scenario up in their mind. What if he decided to go jogging or go hunting and decided not to sit down in a study and put that manuscript together?
I think another person would have taken the mantle. Life abhors vacuum. So I am glad he listened, followed his path. Or if not, another person would definitely have written, maybe not call it Things Fall Apart, but something related to the book. Yes, because ideas are always there.
That's right. Know? So let's talk about what roles the cultural memory play in shaping identity of Ala Igbo, and how can it be reimagined since we are using our imagination.
So the title is Unoka, Things Fall Apart When Stories Are Not Being Told.
Yeah.
Again, then reimagining Ala Igbo through cultural memory. I think that when our stories are not being told, or when we are not documenting enough and taking down, going back to where we started from, our culture, our identity, our history, and begin to ask questions. And it's not to, let's say, copy whatever we think that our ancestors did in the past, but begin to converse with it, have conversations with it, and see the ones that really worked out well and the ones that we can improve on, and narrow it down now to what is happening in our society and what we are becoming, especially in this digital age, and see how we can make that work for the people of today. Yes.
So typically, if I understand this, because my mom told me a lot of stories, folk stories. Some of them I can't remember, but some of them I can. Lots of proverbs flowing down. Largely, the Igbo society has rich oral tradition. But do you think that's a risk that even that oral tradition is being lost? Because a lot of people are in a hurry, we're using our phones, and we hardly tell our children stories. Even I'm guilty of this. I don't know what I've told my children, any folk story in our local dialect. It becomes a challenging obstacle.
It's being lost, I agree. I grew up in a family that storytelling was really a very huge part of my growing up, not just me and my siblings as well. So, and I'm one of the privileged ones to meet my great-grandmother, my grandmother, and have aunties and uncles around me. And we had lots of stories, folklore, traditional music, and all of that, proverbs, like you mentioned. And growing up in my family, you don't expect them to hand over instructions to you or caution you just by calling you and either speaking English or Igbo for you to understand. They will just drop one or two proverbs and you go and sit with it. And by the time you sit with it, nobody's going to flog you or shout. But by the time you're done and you come back, and my grandmother will ask you, so what did you come up with? Before. So you now begin to explain. And of course, as a child, you may not be able to, come up with the right interpretation. And she will go back and explain that to you. So that's the kind of upbringing I have. But right now, a lot of people are not doing that, probably because of time, distractions with social media and all of that. But I also think there is a way to reimagine that and bring back our folklore, because our folklore are not just, they are not entertainment. Nobody's there they don't want to entertain you. It's embedded with culture, it's embedded with instructions, right? That if you pay attention, it's hardly for you to go wrong. That's why when you compare the people, well, not all of them, that most people that grew up with their grandmothers, with their parents, that are very particular about the Igbo culture, very particular about our folklore, very particular about our spirituality, you see that they turn out differently. Why? Because they understand from childhood. So I think it's something that we can reimagine. But right now, maybe not through folklore, calling your child to start, most of them don't even understand Igbo in the first place. But see how you can make it adaptable to what we have today, which we have all our phones, we have digital tools that can help us enhance that. Yeah.
So, I mean, there is now that, if you like, you can call it culture shock. Here we are, coming from a background rich in oral tradition, and we're ending up with something that gives us, it looks like we found ourselves entangled in new media. That tension that has ensued between tradition and modernity in Igbo culture, how do you think that, especially for us from the Southeast, how are we going to deal with this and come out triumphant? Because if we don't, a lot of things will go wrong.
I think, one, it's a beautiful thing, like having the war that we have today. You don't have to, like, coming to Enugu today, I sat with a young guy that was just telling me that these days anybody can write because of ChatGPT, right? And so I think it's a beautiful thing that we are living in this world today. But the question is, are we taking advantage of it, especially people in Southeast? I would say, because I do one or two things, business here in Southeast, so I would say that a lot of young people are paying attention to what is going on in the digital world. So I've seen hubs, whether it's tech, media, and all of that springing up, and they are doing so well. But again, I also see that they're also struggling when you compare to their counterparts in different parts of Nigeria. You can see that people here are struggling. And the question is, how do we get the government, how do we get the elites, how do we get organizations, development partners, and people to actually support this new thing that is happening in Ala Igbo? And how do we make sure they understand the importance, especially the government, the importance of what is going on in the world, and see how they can be a part of it, see how they can mobilize young people that are already equipping themselves on their own, and bring in that support to make sure that, you know, it trickles down to the to other communities in the Southeast.
Isn't the major challenge here language? Because if you look at everything, we'll talk about culture, tradition. If you don't communicate in your mother tongue, there is a problem, because the Chinese, part of the reason why they have done formidable things is because they insist you speak Chinese. They won't welcome you in English. The French won't welcome you in English. The Spanish won't welcome you in English. They will choose their mother tongue. So how do we make sure that our mother tongue becomes a formidable part of our lives? If you are entering Enugu, the first thing you will hear will not be welcome. It should be no, and unapologetically. Why does it look like you have to start explaining yourself when you speak Igbo in the Southeast? Is it even nice to even say it, to even imagine it?
I think that we lost it there at a point. And I also know, because I see a lot of parents making effort to make sure their children know how to speak their local dialects. So when it comes to Igbo losing their mother tongue, I think that what happened was we decided, or we tried to be more European than the Europeans themselves. So I think what happened was we lost that touch. And do we blame the people of today? No, we actually have our parents, some of them, because some people actually make sure that their kids learned Igbo language before the English language, like in my family. But again, you see the new crop of parents that we have today, they don't want their kids to speak in Igbo. And they tell you, oh, let them learn English, or so how, if they learn how to speak Igbo, if they speak Igbo, how would they compete in the world? And I'm happy you mentioned the Chinese, because without language, you lose a sense of who you are, you lose a sense of your identity, you lose your cultural relevance. And I've seen a lot of people come up to me and say, I feel intimidated, I'm losing my confidence. Why? Because I cannot communicate in my local dialect. So what do we do is to begin to help people, support them, not to shame them because they don't speak the Igbo language. And I think a lot of people have also put in work. Like I have a friend, Chioma Mbane, that wrote, authored an Igbo dictionary. And I'm sure there are other Igbo dictionaries out there that anybody that wants to learn Igbo, or parents, can go and learn. And there are YouTube channels where one can learn how to speak Igbo. And ChatGPT is also trying these days, so for anybody that wants to learn, because it depends. So it's either you want to learn or you don't want to. But it's important that you know your language, because your identity is tied to your language. And without knowing your language, there's this loss of belonging that one feels. So
Okay, let's go back to the theme of what you'll be discussing tomorrow, without necessarily preempting your presentation tomorrow. Unoka. Here, is this as a concept, or is it the character you are looking at? Is it Unoka, that the house is key and king, or is it Unoka as the character?
One, I don't want to give up much because I want people to come, but as the character.
Well, anyways, it's going to be live
and as
on TV at 4 p.m. Is it?
Yes, 4 p.m. One, Unoka as a character, because Unoka, we see Unoka as that father, as an irresponsible father, Ubuoja, lazy man, idle man that wants to just play music. But I see Unoka differently. I see Unoka as a very effeminate man, as a man that understands life more than the people that think that maybe he was a lazy man, right? I see Unoka as an intelligent man, a creative, because that's who Unoka was, a creative. So I see, when I look at his character, I see a man that understands the world and was looking at us like, you guys are going to catch up one day. Then I also take it from the place of honor, as in home, as not a place, as a home, but as a symbol, not just a place we return to at Christmas to celebrate, show off our cars and our big houses, mansion and all of that, but as a symbol of identity, for our culture, for our spirituality, to which our morality is tied. So I'll take it from these two angles, then merge both, and we look at what is going on now in our neighbor.
That's right.
How do we begin to reimagine our cultural memory? How do we make our young people understand who they are? And how do they begin to make amends to make sure that everybody, key into the evolution that is going on now?
That's correct. And the Things Fall Apart Festival has been on since Sunday. I want to know what your take is. It's been growing. I was there earlier today, and I noticed a lot of excited young persons there. Is it a sign that maybe that this may be the missing puzzle? Give them something to actually imagine, because a lot of people don't know that this was possible, to actually come to be a part of a celebration from the past. And then you are here making it come alive, and you are part of that story. Absolutely.
I came in this morning, and I was there before heading to the hotel, then came back again this evening. And just like you, I was just looking at the young people there. I see everybody participating, volunteers, people being happy, supporting what is going on. And I think, just like you mentioned, give the young ones what they want, what they like. They love impactful, because you think that young people just want to play around. Give them an impactful initiative, and you see them keying. So, and part of my talk tomorrow will also be about going back to the future, to have a conversation with it, not to copy everything there, but to have a conversation. So you see what is going on at the Umuofia village, at the Center for Memories. You can see, like, we are having conversation with the past. So I listened to a panel this evening, and it was so very, very, very informative. And you see a lot of young people asking very deep and thoughtful questions. And I love it. The question now is, why is the government not taking massive advantage of what is going on?
Yeah.
But before I came here, the adverts were going out. People were calling me, these things fall apart, what is going on, and all of that. People loved it. People from different parts of the world were calling me. And they said, oh, I wish we knew about this. They would have, made plans to come to Enugu. And I came to Enugu, and I'm like, oh, aside from going to Center for Memories to see the Umuofia village, I'm like, what is going on? I expected a very massive
it didn't have a big splash. The government didn't quite buy in.
So what is going on? So that's part of the issue that we're having. So people are coming to set up impactful initiatives, but there are roadblocks everywhere, and it's really very disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, Southeast governors, there's been a lot of talk about whether this is actually something that should interest them. Achebean, if you mention his name anywhere in the world, is easily recognizable. You don't need to mention his name twice, you know. And in this part of the world, we know him as the eagle on the Iroko. Ugo Belunoji, if you like.
Ugo Belunoji.
Well,
I love that.
Yeah, that's it. Eagle on the Iroko.
Yes.
It's not something you see. It's something rare. It's like a comet zooming through the sky. He's up there with the Azikiwes, the Okparas. So he's up there. If there's an Igbo Hall of Fame, he will be just among the top 10.
Absolutely.
So why is it hard for any government not to have a buy-in? Or is there a conflict somewhere we are not aware of?
No, there is no conflict. It's that thing about, I'm trying to be very careful and choose my words here, because in as much as we want the government to support such initiatives, I don't want to say that we are not responsible people, that we don't pay attention to things that matter, because I know a lot of Igbo people that really pay attention, like the Center for Memories, for example, Afia TV, what you guys are doing here. So you guys are actually setting up impactful initiatives, right? But I think there's something fundamentally wrong with the way we think. And I've had these conversations with a lot of people that should know. And we want to narrow it down, because I've done a lot of research about our culture, and I grew up with a father that documented the Igbo culture. And I know that we were not these people in the past. So what happened? So I want to tie it to the Biafra War, that after the war, we just entered the zone of survival mode. So we entered the survival mode. So we had the mindset shift. So everybody is talking about how do we make the next money, how do we make the next move, how do we set up hotels and all of that. Nobody's paying attention to things that really matter, right? So for the government, it's very disappointing. I understand maybe companies, organizations not supporting, but for the government not paying attention to such a big event, it's disturbing that they don't see the value. Because if they have seen the value, there should be a government representative. At Umuofia village, there should be like if you go to because I had to also go through the government, I'm not just talking about the government of this state, because His Excellency Pitamba is throwing his weight behind the creative industry in Southeast to the best of my knowledge. But I think I was expecting the entire Southeast governors to adopt this initiative and run with it, because it's about us, it's about our culture. We are talking about our cosmology here, because if you study Things Fall Apart, right, it has everything about the Igbo, right? So it's not just a fictional writing, it's historic, because it mentioned cosmology, identity, history, our language, everything, slavery, colonialism. It's a very impactful book, very compact. So why are they not taking advantage? And we have two huge headliners, and they are sleeping on such a big opportunity. And some people say like, oh, Igbo people don't like media, they don't understand media. And I'm beginning to understand. I don't want to believe that they don't understand media, because I've seen very brilliant Igbo young men and women in media doing exceptionally well. It's just that the government don't want to understand the importance of media. That is not, you don't use media only when you want to campaign or just for political slogans, or when you want to get people to support you or vote for you. These are the kind of initiatives every politician that comes from this region should support. But unfortunately, we are here, and I hope it gets better.
Yeah, that's our hope. And the Eastern Eye will return after this break. Stay with us. You're welcome back to the Eastern Eye here on Umuofia TV, a program that x-rays the political, social, and economic developments around us. My name is Alex Obodo, and I still have my guest here. And, we're still celebrating the Things Fall Apart Festival. I nearly said Chino Achebe Festival, but if you look at it, that's actually what it is.
Yeah.
Would you have Things Fall Apart without the eagle on the Iroko, Ugobel Naoji? Now, let's just get through some questions. Oral traditions. What role do you think they play? Oral traditions, myths, or legends in shaping the cultural memory of Ala Igbo? Because I think it's a book by someone, it's Akukwe Nwakalor or something. People always remember that my mother used to tell me this, mother used to tell me that. If you ask a lot of young men, they will still remember what their parents told them. But now, with time, maybe your memory will start fading if you don't pen them down. Someone will ask you, you need to go and do a proper interview of your parents if they're still here, so you don't cry when they go too much. So how do you think we can leverage in this?
So I'm an advocate of encouraging people to document their family history. My father, Kokalia, documented his family history, ancestral knowledge and all of that. So I think oral tradition play an important role, because when you hear either a story or maybe a part of a family story about maybe one or two uncles or your ancestors, your great-grandparents, there are certain kind of stories that you will never forget. But what you do with that story, it's also it's important equally. So I encourage people these days to document their family history. And I do that quite a lot. It's an initiative I started about 3 years ago, host master classes. And what do I do there? I teach people the kind of questions to ask. Whether not just having it on audio, you can do a coffee table book, you can turn it into a documentary, but the most important thing is to have it documented so that you leave it for your next generation. Because why people are afraid of oral history is that with time it gets distorted. But when it's written down, people don't forget. So I encourage everyone, if you have not done it, this is the right time to, if you are lucky to still have your parents around, ask them questions, ask the right questions. They will tell you stories, and document it, because it's very important. And again, what I also initiate is to get our children to begin to know the importance of having a family and knowing your history, because our history is also tied to our identity. And when you know that you come from a rich history, there are certain kind of behavior that you are not going to display, because the Igbo will always ask, "Ngonye Kebo?" Because when you are asked Ngonye Kebo, that's whose child are you? And you don't want to be that irresponsible daughter or son that will bring shame to the family, right? So wherever you go, you carry your heritage and show people that, okay, I am the daughter of Akokalia, Onichi Nwakalor, Nonya Molum, right? And that's a thing of pride. So I encourage people, I love oral history, I love oral storytelling. It's really very important, because what you hear, you can hardly forget. But these days, because of distraction, that's why our fathers did not forget their history. Have we ever sat down to wonder, why did they not forget generations of stories? They passed that down to us, but we are forgetting now because of what? Because of distractions. but we're not going to toe their line. That's why I said that we need to have a conversation with the past. So when you have that oral history, document it in various formats.
So now this is speaking to that point in your topic tomorrow, when stories are lost.
Yeah.
So do you think that at a point now that Igbo should be afraid of losing their story? Do you think it's possible that there is that fear, even if no one is expressing it, that part of our stories may have been lost? Because either because you have fathers who weren't expressive enough to communicate with their children, or that we're too busy trying to fend for the family and we are not telling them stories.
I think the Igbo will never lose their stories, because you still have people that are still telling the right story. But I think...
But pardon me for interrupting, but the stories vary from community to community, and this is where it gets interesting.
That's
right.
Right?
Ezo.
So what we need to do is to go back to history, go back to those people, because they're still here, and ask questions, right? And we can never lose our story. But what I would say that could happen is that the stories might get distorted. So this is why we need storytellers, we need documentarians, we need researchers, right? And we don't have to leave our stories to the offenders, like to the irresponsible ones. So we need to take back our story and tell it the way it needs to be told. Because if you don't know who you are, people will define you anyhow they see it. So our stories can never be lost. But what could happen is that our stories, when not told from the right channel, can get distorted.
Yeah, our stories will never be lost. And just like we will say, in those days, Umuofia will say, Tofiakwa. Yes, our stories will never be lost. So, but let's take a look at the relationship between cultural identity and geographical space. If, for instance, you have people who are in the US or in Australia, and they are Igbo people, do you think that there is that bond, that relationship in them showing their identity? Do you think that there's something that really sprouts from within them to push them to actually identify themselves as Igbo people?
I think a lot of people are doing that. People are, checking out their DNA, tracing because I have a friend that says to me, she's a Black American, and she told me that I am Igbo. Ujuaku, I am Igbo. I'm happy. I am Igbo. I want to come back. So people are tracing, and there is something about it. I think it's spiritual. I don't know what that is. That once you're an Igbo man or woman, you get that wake-up call. I don't know how. And when you see them, you know that, okay, you behave like this kind of people, right? It's maybe in their hardworking spirit, in, Igbo people are very industrious, or the way they are very bold, because we are very bold and confident people. So somehow you can see that relatability, like, okay, this guy or this woman behaves like an Igbo person. So I think there is something that makes them begin to ask themselves, who are we? And trace it back to their history then, and take it from there.
Yeah, let's talk about our schools. What do you think will succeed in reimagining anything if what we are trying to reimagine will not pass through the school system?
I think the question is, does it even really need to pass through the school system? Yeah,
I mean, take a look at it. Our children spend quite a chunk of time there. And in many schools, they don't have Igbo teachers. In Southeast Nigeria.
It's quite disappointing that we don't have Igbo teachers in Southeast Nigeria. And in some schools, right? And I think, and personally, I want to take that responsibility not to the teachers, but to the parents. Because if you're a mother or you're a father and you don't raise your kids to be responsible adults and to understand your history, your culture, and your traditions, then there is something fundamentally wrong with you.
But there are two levels. There are two levels to this. The Igbo you will speak at home is broadly different from how you will speak at your school, because you start doing things that will help you pass the exam, not necessarily about how well you speak it. Some people will speak perfect Igbo, but they can't write it. So that's where the literacy, Igbo literacy, is different from just being an Igbo man and speaking Igbo. There are millions of people speaking Igbo, but they cannot pass an Igbo exam. So this is just where the point is.
I now understand what you're saying. So that's where the reimagination comes in. So what do we do? Is to talk with the government, Ministry of Education, and look at policies and see what works and what will not work. And we also need to know, like Nibonas, I'm from Oka, so I may not understand what maybe someone from Ebonyi State will speak. Maybe the same Igbo language, but the dialects are different, right? So I'm beginning to adopt, okay, what is that overall language that we need to adopt? Or do we just speak anyhow you want? And
but there's some centrality, especially for the purposes of passing exams. But for purposes of communication at home, your parents will speak your dialect.
So it boils down
because I know if my mother calls me, because there are ways to distinguish when you are in trouble and when your mother is impressed with you. If my mom calls me and says, Kenewao, my name is Kenechukwu. If she says Kenewao, I know she's excited. She wants to share her excitement with me. But if I hear Kenebieba, I'm in trouble. If I hear Kenebieba, the tone will even tell me that I'm in trouble. I already know that I'm in trouble. So the sort of things you get by communication in your dialect, it's deeper than just having an A1 in an exam.
I think the entire Nigeria educational system needs overhauling. It's not just in Igbo language. I mean, we have our outdated curriculum. So it's something we need to go back to and look at what is working and what is not working. So because if you get students to learn a particular kind of Igbo that is different from because my Oka dialect is different from Nobi dialects, right? And then we go to school and we have the exam passing Igbo dialects, right? It doesn't make sense. So I think the entire thing needs to overhaul.
Well, okay.
I know it's a very good point. That's a hard talk.
Yes.
I don't know when that will happen.
Yeah, that's a good point.
My own is to encourage people to communicate in Igbo language in their families. Let's even start from there. And I get confused. The Igbo is where I know I did that in secondary school, but I've forgotten all of that. The Igbo is where and all of that.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go back to the Things Fall Apart Festival. I think that with the kind of buzz I've seen on social media and how people are responding to this, I'm sure that the Center for Memories will consider it being a yearly event. I haven't spoken to them about this, but from what I'm sensing, it looks like we're onto something here. Because let me just ask this question: if a book by Professor Wole Soyinka was to be taken and celebrated like this in any part of the Southwest, it will create quite a buzz. I'm sure you were expecting this. And and it goes back to the issue we raised about the Southeast governors. So why this isn't an issue enough for them to have a buy-in. But moving beyond that, what can individuals, both at home and in diaspora, do? For someone like me, I've volunteered my talent already. I mean, if the government refuses to buy in, how do we buy in?
See what you just said. I had a conversation with someone this evening before getting to the studio. And the question is, if we are celebrating Wole Soyinka somewhere in Lagos, definitely the whole world will key into it. So what is happening? So, and listen, it's not just about the government. Like, if you think about it deeply, I think that with the pause, I said I've been receiving messages all over the world. So I know that there are lots of people, lots of individuals, the money bags that have seen Things Fall Apart Festival because the publicity has been so wonderful, right? And they're just sitting back. And I know, because I know the organizers, I know they've put in a lot of work, knocking on doors that just refuse to be opened. And you're asking yourself, if you don't support your own, why would you even be looking at government or looking at development partners with the number of money bags, billionaires and billionaires that we have now, Ala Igbo? We shouldn't be waiting for anybody to come and support our work. Then if we're celebrating a legend's work, right? And the legend himself, and you're expecting people to, I don't know what they're expecting, because I know that the organizers did their work. I know they put in the work. So the question now is, what do they want? I don't know. But I'm so happy that a lot of young people are buying into this. You go over there, you see people sitting down in the hundreds. In the opening day, it attracted about 2,000 people in that center. So just imagine what could have happened if they had the necessary support. And it's so disappointing. I don't even want us to compare, like what Wole Soyinka and Achebean. I don't even want us to go there. But what I'm saying, it is time they really pay attention to things that matter, because if they don't, there'll be a time they will look for storytellers, the creatives, and I'm not saying celebrities, because two different things. If you see people that are actually doing impactful work, like the storytellers and the creatives in the society, the historians, pay attention to them and support them. And what do we, my advice is to encourage the organizers. They should just continue doing what they're doing. And I've already told them I'm ready to support in any way that we can. And I'm glad that somebody like you is also volunteering your time, even in the midst of your busy schedule. And I know a lot of people that are volunteering to support the center. And I call on all the money bags, all the elites, the governments, whether you're Imo State government, Enugu State government, Abia State, Ebonyi State, Anambra State. You guys should not sleep on impactful initiatives, because if you do that, I don't know how you're going to come out to campaign in the future. Trust me, young people are looking for impactful initiatives.
That's right.
Once you begin to support things they love, you know how we do our own thing.
It will click. It will click. I just remembered at the time Things Fall Apart was airing on NTA, I think it was the late 80s, I think it was. I remembered the part where after Ikemefuna was killed, and Okonkwo came home without Ikemefuna, and the mother had to hum a song. I think it was Nelly Ochendo that did that song. Ikemefuna nwomamo.
You have a lovely voice.
Ikemefuna nwomamo. Ikemefuna okisije. That's where I will stop. That's where I'll stop.
I love that.
So when I was in primary school, there was this teacher of ours. I'll never forget, Mrs. Josephine Wokadia. I remember her name. She taught me in primary 4. And she did this song in one of the functions in school. And all of us were blown away how she was able to just do it. So lovely it was. So I will just ask you, what part of that novel, whether the one you watched on TV or the novel, what part of it have you just reimagined? I'm putting you on the spot.
Remember that time when Okonkwo wrestled Amalinze, the cat, right? And you know Okonkwo despised his father,
That's right.
Unoka. But what happened when that was happening? Unoka's flute was playing at Okonkwo's most powerful time. What is that telling you? That is memory. Do not forget your father, where you're coming from. You see, that particular scene is very packed. That if you begin to unpack it, everything is embedded in that scene. Your family history, your identity, your culture, because Okonkwo remembered. And what happened?
Amalinze's back hit the ground. They were calling him the cat because
the
no one could throw
moment
him.
you remember who you are, you become a different person.
That's correct.
There's something in you that will be awakened. So that is what I want us to reimagine, how to remember who we are, and let that be a wake-up call to become the best in the world. That's all.
I have to thank you so much for talking to us tonight on the Eastern Eye. It's always, I don't know, this, someone will say, maybe you were born for this. Ujuaku Akukwe, thank you so much. Founder,
thank you.
Eastern Nigeria Film and Arts Initiative, ENFAI. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if you haven't gone to the Things Fall Apart Umuofia village, you better head to Center for Memories here in Enugu. A Google map can take you there. A Google map, just put it on your Google map, it takes you there. It's so that you can experience life on Umuofia. I was there and I ate some Umuofia delicacies. I will not tell you the name of the delicacy I ate. If you go there, you will experience it. Thank you for watching the Eastern Eye tonight. My name is Alex Obodo. Good night.